possible rationale for that decision be other than over panicking? Do you have any response? Over-inducement of panic forced things like sending COVID patients to nursing homes. How can you defend that?
Why would I be defending that? I said that the
He's
Trump
giving you a
administration
dichotomy of
did
one
worse than the Biden administration did.
Okay, let me rephrase. Let me rephrase the question.
Dichotomy.
Let me rephrase the question. It seems that we're having a discussion about what caused more harm, the underplaying of COVID or the inducement of panic by overplaying COVID. I say that the only rational reason I could come up with of why these states would send COVID patients to nursing homes was because they were over panicked. And therefore, when we see the tens of thousands of deaths that occurred in states like mine of Pennsylvania at nursing homes, and then in states like New York where they intentionally tried to cover up the numbers, that seems to suggest a real harm that led to real tens of thousands of deaths because of the over panic. Do you have any argument as to why over panic isn't to blame for that?
I don't see any reason why I think that over panic is to blame for that. It just seems like people made the wrong call.
What would can you give me any hypothetical reason why they would have sent COVID patients into nursing homes other than that they were panicking?
For whatever reason, they thought that was the best move to make. I think that it was the wrong move to make, and I support it. So I'm not really attuned to understanding why somebody would do something that seems very wrong.
When you said earlier,
to think that.
Sorry.
He's telling you that it's panicking, though, so he's already giving you his rationale for why he thinks that they would do it, and he's saying that their panic is so high that they are willing to go and do something drastic because of how much they're panicking. So you saying, well, I don't think they would do something wrong on purpose. He's saying, well, I'm already giving you the rationale for why they're doing something wrong. They're panicking.
I
think that they thought they were doing the right thing.
But there's no rationale for why they were doing the right thing. For example, I've done this experiment dozens upon dozens of times. Tom, do you mind being a guinea pig here for a minute? I know it's not conventional to ask the moderator, but do you mind? If I was to ask you, Tom, you're not a virologist, right? You're not a medical professional, correct?
Not today.
You would call yourself an average person, a layman, when it comes to sort of understanding of virology. Okay, if I was to say to you that there's going to be a respiratory virus that's going to be incredibly dangerous that's coming about in 2025, and I asked you, which people do you think would be most susceptible to that virus? Can you give me a list of the type of people you think would be most susceptible?
Probably the oldest and the youngest.
People that, yeah, exactly. People that have deteriorated immune system, particularly the very old and the very young. So if an average person like Tom, and pretty much everyone listening knows, yes, the absolute populations that would be most at risk for a virus like COVID would be like people like that are very old, particularly very old people that are in nursing homes, which by the very nature probably means that their health's not the best. What possible rationale, if me and you and Tom and average people that aren't virologists understand that those are the very people that we should be shielding against COVID the most, if we know that, how could the experts that are virologists be so wrong that they were like, you know what? Let's send COVID patients right into that nursing home, which then had the predictable outcome of tens of thousands of people dying.
They weren't sending people that were COVID positive. They were sending people that were in COVID remission to the nursing homes.
Yes, people that still had active cases of COVID.
No.
That's not true at all. You're absolutely completely incorrect. That's just fundamentally wrong. They were sending people that they knew had active cases of COVID.
I don't think that was the understanding of the people that were sending them.
That is absolutely untrue. They absolutely knew that these people were diagnosed with COVID, and they were sending them to nursing homes.
That they had been diagnosed with COVID.
Right, yes. That they had COVID, that they currently had a case of COVID. Okay, so for example, let's play this game then. You've read a remarkable amount about COVID.
Just show me some evidence.
We'll get to that. I'll show you the evidence. You've read a remarkable amount about COVID. So let's say in April, May of 2020, how long were you infectious when you had a case of COVID?
How long were you able to infect other people
Correct.
for?
If you had a case of COVID.
They were depending on the source, they were recommending 10 days to 2 weeks.
10 days to 2
initial symptoms.
Fine, we'll go with the upper end, 14 days. Yes, I'm absolutely telling you that they sent people into nursing homes within that 14-day period.
And their understanding was this person has active COVID that they can spread. We're going to send them to be around other people.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And the rationale that was given from people like Cuomo and others we were panicked that the hospitals were going to fill up. So we needed to create space for new patients that were coming in. So when we stabilized people, we sent them to nursing homes where they would have medical equipment that could help treat them. But they understood that they were still within that period of time that they were suggesting other people quarantine if they had symptoms. And the predictable results were that tens of thousands of people died. Then you saw with governors like Cuomo, what he did was he was caught intentionally trying to hide the numbers because they were ashamed at how bad it looked politically for them because there was no excuse. Now, I'm being charitable and saying the reason they did that was because they legitimately shit their pants with panic. But it could be that they're just corrupt.
Okay, you could just send me that proof.
Send you proof that they sent them within 14 days.
Because it seems like they thought that the people were going there and they were not able to spread it anymore. And then after finding that out, they changed what their policy was and then began to make them have a negative test before they could go, period.
All right, so I find it, I just want to say, I will look for this. I will try to find the specific evidence of this. It is incredible to me, though, as someone who has bragged.
But it's happening all over the place. You should have an abundance of evidence.
Hold on, Drazi, hold on.
I will bring up the evidence for it. You admit that the evidence exists. Now what you want me to do is find a very specific piece of evidence, that the evidence exists that they sent COVID patients, but I have to provide to you that they sent COVID patients only because they thought that they weren't infectious. That's what I have to do. And so I will look for that evidence and see what I can find. But it is amazing to me that someone who is a someone that is a self-styled expert who claims that has read everything at least for the first 2 years on this has been remarkably ill-informed in a great many of topics on this. I find that incredible. That this isn't some topic I sprang on you.
Misrepresenting everything I'm saying.
What's that?
You're saying that I'm saying stuff that I'm not. You keep saying that I'm saying things that I'm not saying.
Okay, then what?
No, I asked you to show me evidence that they were knowingly sending people to the nursing homes with COVID, with active COVID, that they could spread. I didn't ask you.
Yeah, so at the time, the like information was updating and changing pretty consistently, whether or not we knew that they were going to be infectious for 2 weeks at the time, or whether or not they thought that people weren't infectious anymore. I think that's what Drazi's saying is, yes, they may have done something that actually put people in danger, but they may not have had the right information.
So New York's law,
and after
New York's law that Cuomo signed on March.
After they realized that they had made a mistake, they changed it.
New York's law.
I get it. Sorry.
New York's law that they said that Cuomo signed on March 25th, 2020. It was an order that he issued that stated, quote, "No resident shall be denied readmission or admission to the nursing home solely based on confirmed or suspected diagnosis of COVID." The order was rescinded May 10th. In other words, they didn't say, only people that had COVID cases that have cut out the infectious nature of it. The order was quite clear. Regardless if you had COVID or not, you could not, or if you had a case of COVID, that could not be a reason from preventing you from going into the nursing home. And so what happened was, because of that order, hospitals that were worried about their beds would treat someone for a day or two and say, now you're going to the nursing home, instead of isolating them. And the order was quite clear. Now, do you need more proof other than that order specifically said? Will you at least admit that order, the way it's worded, clearly says that nursing homes have no right to refuse active COVID patients?
Yeah, but that's not what you said. You said they were deliberately putting people into nursing homes.
That's exactly what they did. You acknowledge that that's what the order said, and that's the practical effect of what happened. They took people that they knew had...
That's not what the order said.
Let me repeat what the order said, what you just conceded.
Drazi, just real quick, Drazi, I'm not even understanding your contention. Where you're saying deliberately, do you think they accidentally sent people to nursing homes?
Saying that the person who made that law was not... Because he said that they were actually putting people with COVID into nursing homes, knowing that they had COVID where it could spread, which is a hell of a lot
you're
different than
saying
saying
knowingly.
you can't
Okay,
bar
knowingly.
somebody from
I
going
got
to a
you.
nursing home. Yeah, it's just a lot different than saying you can't bar somebody from entering a nursing home with COVID. Now, do I think that the nursing home should have had like really good response to this in making sure that they are quarantining people that are suspected of
Okay,
COVID?
so real
Sure,
quick,
but it's not the same
Drazi,
as like
you're
them
also
maliciously
claiming-
dumping them off there.
You're also claiming that they knew that they didn't have COVID at the time. Can you send that? Because you did say that there was something showing that they had like negative tests, or that they thought that they were in remission or something like that. So if that disagrees with what Rob's
Once
saying,
it was shown to be a problem, they changed it. Yeah, once it was shown to be a problem, they changed their policy and made them get a negative test before entering a nursing home.
correct. I think Rob's saying that there's like negligence there based on what information they did or didn't have at the time. And so if you're saying that based on the information, this wasn't such a ridiculous idea and that it made sense based on the information they had, you were saying earlier that they had information believing that these people were in remission and that they wouldn't be contagious anymore, right? So we would want that information, yes?
Seeing as how you're the expert who's read all this stuff, surely you can find that evidence. Now, I found an AP article. If that's, we'll see. It doesn't say exactly what you're looking for, but I think that we can intuit it. But before we read it, I just want to say that you've already acknowledged that the way that this law or this order is written, yes, if someone had an active case of COVID, it would not be allowed from the nursing home to prevent them from coming in. Now your only argument is, but the way that would have been implied would have been they would have never sent active patients back to nursing homes. They would have waited until they thought they were no longer infectious. You have no proof of that. We know the law would have allowed them to send active cases of COVID. You're just making that assertion. And I can provide proof to the contrary, where medical professionals talk about how disastrous this policy was. So unless you think the medical professionals that will be listed in this AP article are lying, because you would say, oh, clearly these medical professionals should know that all of these COVID patients that were sent to nursing home were clearly no longer infectious. Unless you're willing to make that claim, how would you argue that the following medical professionals that I'm about to read to you seem to have a huge problem with this policy? Okay, I'll read it then.
I'm looking at the AP article that you're talking about right now.
What's it titled? Over 9,000 virus patients sent into New York nursing homes? Is that the one you're reading? Yes?
Yeah, that's the one. That it also says at some point that AP did their own
Yes.
investigation and they came up with about 4,000 on their
At least
own investigation.
4,500 patients, yeah.
Yeah.
What this was people that were in nursing homes that got sent to hospitals because they had COVID, and then the hospital, because they were panicked that they were going to be overwhelmed, sending the COVID patients back to the nursing homes. So if you read some of the medical experts here, let's say, quote, there has never been any question in my mind that sending COVID-19 patients into completely unprepared, understaffed, and under-resourced nursing homes both increased transmission and led to a greater number of deaths, said Dr. Michael Wasserman, president of the California Association of Long-Term Medicine. While it may be impossible to know whether the additional 2,700 and change patients factored into the virus transmission in nursing homes, quote, any policy that is implemented that does not do everything it can to safeguard COVID from coming into a healthcare facility has the potential to increase and spread the virus, said Stephen Hance, president of a large nursing home group called the New York State Health Facilities Association. The months later disclosure, quote, further confirms the state's flawed approach in implementing a hospital-centric strategy to combat the COVID-19 pandemic. Other states set up nursing homes that were COVID only. The flurry of disclosures came late last month after Attorney General Letitia James, a Democrat, issued a blistering report accusing the Cuomo administration of underreporting its nursing home deaths by more than 50%. This was consistent with an AP report from August that focused on the fact that New York is one of the only states that counts just those who died on nursing home property and not those that died after being transported to the hospital. Geez, it seems like all these health experts are saying, my God, they were sending active COVID patients. This was leading to increased transmissions and deaths. And then Cuomo tried to cover up how many people died. But surely you would be there to say, no, that's wrong. They never sent active COVID patients. All of these medical professionals are wrong. And the fact that there was increased transmissions and deaths was purely coincidental. That's the argument that you're staking here.
No, you're right. It did look like they sent some. It did look like they were sending positive ones. I think the numbers that I got, or what I got, was from below the part where they changed the law.
Now they also did that in Pennsylvania. In fact,
also, I did say that.
Okay, I'm sorry.
I did say that I didn't agree with how the nursing homes were being ran. or how the nursing homes in general were a hotbed for death in general.
So my question then, going back
During
to why
COVID.
we initially came to this,
Bad.
what would the possible rationale for that decision be other than over panicking? Do you have any response?
Simply not having strong directives from the federal government on what to do, and people are trying to make their best guess at the situation. It would have seemed like a good time for the Trump administration to step in and do something about it when this was happening, wouldn't it have?
What would they have said? Do you think that the Democrats would have been fine with Trump issuing executive orders saying that Democrat governors are not allowed to do the things that they're doing? And
Doesn't matter if they'd be fine or not. He still could have done it, right?
No, I don't think he could have. I think it would have been drugged to courts. I don't know that the executive would be able to force state governors to do certain sorts of policies on state ground like that. Furthermore, your answer is pure deflection. Like, even if you could say a lack of leadership meant that they had to make the best on their own, okay, let's say that's true. And so then what was the rationale that went into their obviously terrible decision? The best faith to put it, to steelman their argument or their design position as much as possible would be they freaked out, they panicked. And you just don't want to say that because you think that hurts you in this debate, which it does. But it's a shame that you won't just be upfront, that clearly that would be the only possible rationale that's good faith, that's not treating them just like fucking monsters, was, look, they freaked out.
No, I'm saying that I don't know what the reason was. There wasn't information being given from the top to the states on how to handle this. If that had been the case, then we could have all had a unified approach in how we would be handling this. Do you disagree with that?
Yes, I absolutely disagree. I think that actually the preferable solution would have been allowed to have states deal with it themselves. Because, for example, states like California that would have embraced a far more stringent lockdown policy, they should have had the right to do that. If anything, I would have wanted the executive orders to go the opposite direction of you. I would have wanted them to say you can't lock down, which clearly state governors would have fought, right? Because I think the lockdowns were a net deficit. I think they were very harmful. And so you would have freaked out had Trump done that. I know you would have. You would have been like, Trump doesn't have the right to tell California they can't lock down. This is absurd. That's what you would have said. But instead you're saying, no, I think Trump should have had the right to tell all these states that they should have locked down, that they should have taken more stringent policies. I fundamentally reject.
That wasn't.
We're coming
my
up
question,
on an hour right now. The Drazi, based on the fact that the federal government did say they did leave it to the states to make their own decisions. Do you think that this was like a negligent decision made by the Cuomo administration?
Yeah, it seems like it. But my position has been that Trump administration did worse than the Biden administration did on COVID.
Okay, so
overall.